The purpose of sharing my story is about trying to inspire young women out there in the world, adults, and everybody who feels that they find some strength and hope, or they can learn a thing or two from my story. My story literally starts when, I guess, my journey starts between when I was 9, right through to, I would say, when I was about 15. I grew up in what I personally call a rainbow family. It's all in my book, so please do buy the book. I call it my rainbow family because it consisted of my stepfather and his 2 stepchildren, and my mother, who had just me. These 2 amazing human beings taught us love. And when they got married, I was just about probably a year old. And I smelled love. I could breathe love. I touched it. I know what love is all about. When you see it and watch it on My Family Matters or all the sitcoms that we watch on TV, that's what my family was all about. When I use the word step, to me, it's vulgar, but only now use it on this platform. Hang on a second, sorry. So when I hear the word step, for me, it's more like vulgar because we never use that word. I guess a lot of people in the community only found out that I came from a blended family the day my mother died. That was in the year 2000. My dad was my hero. He was just, I think words fail me when I even try to explain this amazing human being that, I was blessed with. God gave me himself through my dad, and I learned so much. Unfortunately, my parents got married in the 80s. That's when HIV had just started. And I remember my mom always used to tell us, don't ever blame your dad or me because we're both divorcees. We're coming from different marriages. We don't know who brought this disease in the family. All you have to know is that you love one another. People are going to try and split you up. They're going to try and blame your dad or blame me and say, oh, such and such brought the disease into the family, but don't listen to all that. So they both had HIV, and having that terminal illness at that time, I think during those years, it was such a disease that people were so scared of. We became like an outcast in the family. No one wanted to talk to us. If we visited extended family, they would literally, I remember we had one family with a washing machine back in the days. Oh, that was amazing in Africa, having a washing machine, and they would take the sheets and put them in there for hours and hours and hours. We would have to sleep in the garage because they were scared to catch this HIV from us. So my mom and dad ended up having 2 more children, my little sister and my little brother. By the time, I guess, my little brother was born, my dad fell really sick, and within 24 hours, he was gone. I remember my dad walking out. This was back in 1991, I think. I remember him walking out, going to work as usual with his lunchbox clutched under his armpits, and that was his usual routine. And I would expect him around about 4:30 to turn up home, but he didn't that day. He would turn up with 1 packet of chips. We called them Willard's tomato chips. 1 packet of chips, 1 dandy bubble gum, because I was the princess in the house. My brother and sister didn't deserve these treats because I was the princess. So that day he didn't turn up. Within 24 hours, my dad was gone. And at that time, they didn't know that it was HIV. So we just carried on with life. My mom became a single parent, and that's when she gave birth to my little brother. So she ended up having 5 children to raise by herself. Then I think by 92, 93, somewhere there, my little brother and little sister were quite sick, like constantly sick, having ulcers, diarrhea, all sorts of things. And at that time, like I said, HIV was quite a new thing, so people didn't know what was going on. Then my mom's doctor said, look, there's this new thing called HIV. Let's just test it. You never know what's going on. They did test, and it so happened that my little brother and my little sister had HIV. So now we had 3 family members to take care of with a terminal illness. I think at that point, my mom just sat down with God, because she used to teach us that you sit down with God, you sit on the couch and you just say, God, listen, now we need to talk. Okay, what do I need to do? He speaks. So I'm sure at that point she must have sat down and said, okay, tell me what to do. She went straight into a survival mode, and she went straight into becoming a mentor, a teacher. You know how it is, moms. We are literally everything. But she became a life coach to all of us. I was about 9, I think, at that stage, and she taught me how to bathe a little infant, because my baby brother was probably around 3 months or 2 months old. So she taught me how to hold a newborn, how to bath a baby, how to feed a baby, how to look after it when it's not feeling well. She taught me how to cook, how to clean. She literally just started teaching us everything that she needed to know. But she always reminded us that everything that I'm teaching you is God basis. Because without God, you are nothing. Without God, you cannot do anything. He put us on earth. People try to say, oh, there's this and that, all these gods and whatever. But deep down, I think everybody on this planet knows that there is a God out there. So she became a prayer warrior. Mothers normally pray silently behind closed doors and they cry. But at that moment, she said, no, I need to teach my children to pray. They need to know how to do these things because nobody's going to teach them. She started teaching me. I was 9. She started teaching me about sex. You can imagine a 9-year-old being taught about sex. And I remember she used to say to me, Lynn, listen, boys are naughty. When you get to your teenage years, they're going to touch you. But I can't stop you. But if they do, because, teenagers, we all go through, that. And it's part of growing up. It depends how strong you are. But if they do, make sure you tell those boys, do not go below this. Do not go below this. So honestly speaking, I held on to that even after she died. I held on. I was like, no, Mama, I'm going to be married pure because you told me those boys are not allowed to go below this. So she would teach us all these things about how to look after your husband, how to look after kids, your household. She literally became a textbook for us on how to lead our lives. Yeah. So in the community, people fell in love with her. They fell in love with our mom. I remember growing up, we always had maybe about 10, 15 teenagers at our house because she oozed love wherever she was walking. One of those people, just you look at her like, this woman is warm. This woman is love itself. But I can tell you and testify that it's only through Christ. As the day progressed, things were hard. We would, we never went without food. I think people from Africa or Zimbabwe, they know what we call lacto, which is like a thick, sour milk. We would have sada in lacto, and she would set the tables and put serviettes shaped into little ducks, because it's dinner time. It doesn't matter what we're eating. And she would say, you know what? We've been eating lacto for 2 days, but let's just talk to God. And would hold hands and say, God, I expected chicken on my table. I expected full chicken on my table tomorrow. My kids need this chicken. And surprise, surprise, you'd literally, someone would knock on the door with a live chicken. And I'd be like, wow, we felt like, is it magic? Is that, when you're young, you're like, oh, okay. It was quite amazing. But those years, all these lessons, all this love and everything that we were taught. Can you wait a minute, Papa? It's okay. Looks nice. Won't be long. All those things that she taught us to love one another, just to keep the bond between myself and my siblings. Oh, one thing that I admitted is that due to the course of my mom teaching us everything else, my little brother ended up dying from HIV. So we lost my dad, we lost my mom, my stepsisters lost their mom as well. And she was a mom who was literally part of our family, because my mom always used to teach us that we should respect their mom, because if it weren't for her, I wouldn't have those siblings. So she would make it a point that we had to go and visit, we had to go for coffees, we had to go for play dates, so that we are all in touch as one big family. And in Zimbabwe, that's something that's usually unheard of. Because when somebody gets married, like, oh, you took my man, or what happened? Even if she didn't take your man, it's just toxic. But my mother always used to say, my biological dad, their biological mom, it's all because of these 4 parents that we were all there. So we needed to give them the respect and love, because it doesn't make sense if I don't love their mom, then how are they going to love me as well? It doesn't make sense. So their mom died. My biological father died. My stepbrother died. My stepfather died. So we had 4 family members gone already. All we had was my mom and my little sister. Fast forward year 1999, our little sister fell sick, and I remember the days that she passed on, she started writing down a little list of her friends. She said, Mommy, don't forget to give such and such a birthday present on this particular day. We always believe that God sent, her name was Joan. We always believe that God sent Joan to be the angel we needed in the family. She was a little trooper. She'd be walking around with all these ulcers everywhere, and in Africa, it's expensive. Blazers are expensive. She'd take a blazer off and give it away at school. And my mom would be like, what are you doing? I say, Mom, God knows where you got this blazer from. This child that I gave this blazer, God knows that it's difficult. They're in a much more difficult position than we are, and God will provide. Don't ever worry about material things. She was 9. She was like a little grandmother walking around in the house, always knitting, always inspiring us, always telling us to kneel down and pray, always asking us, do you feel God's presence? Do you feel God's presence? And at that time, I was still so young as well. I was just in my early teens, and I would just look at her. I'm like, this child is freaky. I don't know what she's talking about. All I want is to go out and play with my friends. This God she's talking about, I don't know. That's Mom's job. I know what to do and just go and play. But she was so pure, so full of love, and she was just amazing. So when she turned 9, she fell really sick, and she passed away, and we're left with Mom. So now we're done, 5 members gone now. We're left with Mom. And at that time, Mom just told us that that was in end of 99. She said, look, guys, I'm tired. John is gone. The only reason why I held on strong is because I knew that no one was going to come and touch my baby except for you 3. So I think this is our final year together. My brother was in Kwekwe doing his his electrical course. He was trained to be an electrician. My sister at that point was working in Victoria Falls as a white water rafts guide, and I was still in high school. So she called both of them, said to my sister, you need to quit your job. You need to put your school on hold. You continue next year. You need to come back home because this is my final year. And everybody thought she was joking. And they came back and we had to spend more time. It's not that she was sick. She was sick internally, but you could never see that she was sick because her prayer every night, I tell you, she always used to say, God, may I die plumpy and cute. I don't want people to be scared of me. I don't want to look bony. I just want to look chubby and cute because, you know, I just want to go out with a bang. So you wouldn't even tell that she wasn't feeling well. She suffered a stroke twice. She had to learn how to speak, how to walk. And the three of us, we stayed together as a unit. No one came to our aid. No one, except for my mom's best friend. No one came to our aid. We used to bath our mother, feed her. We did everything. And these two kids that I'm talking about, my stepbrother and stepsister, for my mom to end up having them, when my father died, the family interfered and they took them away. And my mom had to go all the way to high court to fight for them. She literally went nuts. She said, you cannot take my children away. Jonathan gave me these babies. They're mine. They're not mine, you know, through blood, but blood doesn't make you family. Give me back my children. So she won the battle, and obviously we became a family. So that's how we ended up being raised by my mom. Hell started when mom died. Just before she died, she sat us down. She said, my brother's nickname was Pee-Pee. He was so scared of the car horn when he was young. So I said, Pee-Pee, and Paida, which is my older sister, just know that life is about to happen to you guys. The moment I shut my eyes, it's going to be hell and it's going to be a war zone. But you have to promise me that you're going to stick together because the love that binds you is from God. Your father and me, we were prayer warriors and we put you together because of love, nothing else. We are a miracle, what we are. A lot of people long for that. So just remember that. They will split you up, but you will eventually come back together. She started describing all her siblings. Auntie such and such is like this. Auntie such and such is like, you know, she started describing all his siblings, what they were going to do, what was going to happen. She would roll on the floor, pretending to be dead, copying what some of his siblings would do. And she said to us, death is painful, especially of losing a mother. On the day that I die, I do not want you to cry because you're going to be orphans. An orphan cries at night with your head on the pillow. I want you to go out there and I want people to see only strength. And that strength might possibly intimidate them, but don't ever cry in their presence because there'll be weakness and they'll take advantage of you. She said to us, I want you to focus, stay focused on my funeral. So during funerals in Africa, they put you on a little mat, you sit on the corner so that people know, you know, who has lost their immediate family or whatever. So we're sitting there and we're literally just scratching each other, going, look and such, look what mom used to do, you know, look what mom used. And we're literally just, you know, giggling away. And because it was like a movie for us. So we had to learn. We had to take that opportunity to learn. And straight after that, obviously, we split up. And that's when really hell started. On that day, when my mother died, one of my aunties got up and said, Pee-Pee, Paida, get up, get the hell out of my sister's house. You don't belong here. This is my sister's house. And the whole community was shocked because I had been legally adopted by my father. So we all used the same last name. So they were quite surprised at what do you mean? These are not her kids. What do you mean? So they had to go. I ended up being, I know, sorry, I've taken a bit time. I ended up being kicked out of my own mother's house. I would go without food. I ended up experiencing sexual abuse, you know, from immediate family members. I'm not talking about somebody next door. I'm talking about aunties and uncles, who were so dear to my mother, people that she never expected would go to that extent, but they did. I would walk in the bushes contemplating on committing suicide because I had nobody. My siblings had been taken away from me. My parents were gone. I literally had no one. I ended up, one of my mom's very good friends, one of her best friends, ended up facilitating for me when I was about 17 for me to move to New Zealand. She helped my mom's younger sister. Then she made my auntie promise that, you repay me back by bringing Lynn over before your family comes over. So I ended up being in New Zealand. I thought life was going to be fantastic, I thought being overseas would be great, but deep down in my heart, that was the day that I fell apart because my home was where my siblings were. And my sister had moved to the UK and my brother was still in Zimbabwe. I really longed to be with what I knew love was. So I felt going to New Zealand was literally the end of my life. I couldn't go to uni. They took my passport away. I couldn't go to uni. So I literally became a housemaid. I would spend my days looking after Zimbabwean kids. I would have about 6 little kids running around the house, look after them for free, clean the house, cook. During the weekends, I would be sent out to a place like Bunnings and I would sell sausages from about 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. at night. For what reason? I have no idea. But that became my life. And I got into a relationship, started dating. I was going through all these things, so during the week, I would look after the kids. During the weekend, I'd sell the sausages. And at night, I would sew quilts and curtains and all sorts of things because my mom had taught me that. So my auntie expected me to sell these things and she expected me to make these things and she would sell them to the community. I wouldn't get a single dime. I started working my first job. All I remember was that I didn't have my ATM card. I'll be given $20 per week after working under the table just for fuel. But the rest of the money that I would earn was a token of appreciation that I'm allowed to be in their presence. That's what was told. That's what I was told, that it's a token of appreciation. So when I started dating, I was like, oh, you know what? Maybe this is me starting my life. I've met my Prince Charming. This is fantastic. It didn't work out that way. I walked from one house straight into the other. First week of marriage, I was the perfect example in our African culture of how a child should act and behave. I got married pure, bride price was done, white wedding, everything was done correctly. I respected and honored my family. But from walking into that marriage, first week of marriage, the beating started. I was in domestic violence for nearly 9 years of my life. And during those 9 years, I terminated 2 children because it wasn't part of my husband's budget at that time. I couldn't go back home because I knew I didn't have any support. I was an immigrant. I didn't know what to do. So now I start sharing my story because I want people who look after orphans to be a bit more loving, a bit more caring, a bit more compassionate. And I'm speaking out about domestic violence as well, so that other young women out there should know that even if you're in a situation where you don't have any support from family, there's organizations out there in these beautiful countries that we live in now. We're so privileged and now so blessed that you can seek help. I didn't know at that time. I was quite young. I got married when I was 21. But from my family, 21 was like, what are you still doing here? You need to get married. So I felt pressured to get married. And, I just want people to understand that you might be an immigrant, you might be an orphan, you might feel unworthy, you might be stuck, but always seek for help. Always seek for help. And I look at my life right now. People always ask me that, why are you always smiling? Why are you always happy? Why are you always this? And I said, the only logical explanation I have is that I'm a miracle. I'm a miracle. That's honestly the logical explanation to what happens to my life. Things just happen, and I owe it to God. That's how I live my life. I don't know how best to explain it, but that's how I feel. I ended up finding opportunities. I've done a talk before on empowerment, about the power of elevation as well. That wherever you go out there in the world, it doesn't matter who you meet. Let's help each other out. We've got this platform here with Gertrude that she started. If we can help each other, help each other out there. If you've got a conference that's out there you've heard about, Lynn or Richard or Non-Plant-La or Charlotte or anybody, call them, elevate each other. Because that's how I became, a manager in a corporate world with no qualifications at all. I'm in Sydney right now. I don't remember the last time I had to apply for a job. I don't have to. You just randomly get a call. Hey, Lynn, do you want to work with us? We've got a job offer. How much do you want? How many hours do you want to work? With no education at all. The only thing that I managed to do was to get my dental nursing. And I did my dental nursing sitting in the closet, being kicked, being beaten by my husband because he didn't want me to get education. I went through hell with him. I nearly died because of the beatings. But I survived. I went through depression, anxiety. I went on antidepressants for years, many, many years. But we were the perfect golden couple. I urge you, when you hear somebody saying, are you okay? Don't just take their word. Dig deep, converse, have conversations with people. I always go on my Facebook and I start yelling at people. I say, don't text me, don't send me a DM. Here's my number, pick up the phone and call me. We need to connect. We've forgotten what it means to be human. We've forgotten what it means to care for each other. Do we even know who our neighbors are? Do you know what's happening across the road? Who said you can't knock on your neighbor's door? Is that just an assumption? We're always assuming that the community is, doesn't allow us, breaching privacy. I will breach their privacy. I know what happens in my street. Trust me. I know what time this one turns up at home. Not that I'm nosy. I want to know. That's the community. That's the village. Village is not about being in Africa. It takes a village to raise a family. It takes a village to be people, to be human. It doesn't matter what race, what color. It doesn't matter who you are, where you are. We need to be responsible. We need to look after each other. Imagine if one person had come when I was being abused as a teenager with all my parents gone. If one adult had come and actually said, Lynn, are you okay? Come and talk to me. Come to auntie's house. Come for a sleepover at my house. Just that care, maybe I would have been okay. But I had to go through all that because no one cared to ask whether I was actually okay. I had to go through 9 years of domestic violence because no one cared to ask. You saw my photos on Facebook, me smiling. I told you guys, my smile is infectious, but it doesn't mean that I'm okay. It's all responsible. If there's anything that you guys are going to take from this, please ask, knock on the door, look after those orphans, look after them. It might be hard for other people in different countries for you to relate when it comes to things like HIV or orphans or what you go through. Do whatever you can. Just because they're in a first world country and there's governments who look after you, there's social services, whatever. they're still an orphan. A child deserves parents. A child deserves love. And now I always remind people who talk to me that I'm an adult now. I'm raising my kids by myself, but I'm an adult orphan. I'm sure all of you, some of you who still have your parents alive right now, you still feel like you're babies. You still pick up the phone and talk to your dad or talk to your mom. You feel that warmth. How about me? Who does that for me? You need to reach out to people and ask, are you okay? Do you need help? Let's just be human. I'm sorry I've taken too much of your time today. Thank you so much for having me on the platform. I'm usually quite organized, but today's like, oh. But thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me, and be blessed, be miracles out there.